So we've got pigs coming and we need to get ready for them. That's up next. Hello everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're coming to you here today. It is October 2020. So we're here getting ready for the next round of pigs to come onto the new farm, and we have to create a new pig enclosure for them. We have an area set aside on the back of the property that's going to be specifically for the smaller livestock, pigs, sheep, goats, and things like that. However, we don't have water run to the back of that property yet, so we wanted to make sure that we had an area for the pigs this year and a little closer to the house, so we were closer to water and that type of thing. And then, of course, we want to be able to keep an eye on them. So what we decided to do is rehash something that's very familiar to most of you if you've watched us before, and that's a simple pig pen. In fact, I'll link the video here where you can see our first design of this pig pen and the first implementation of it. And we're going to be going off of the same basic plan today. Before we get started, let's talk a little bit about the tools that you're going to need in order to get this done. First things first, you can see behind me here, we have this installation here. We have basic pig paneling. You can pick this up at Tractor Supply or any place like that. It's a 3-foot tall fence that has gradients as far as the cross bars. So it's smaller for when you have little baby piglets, so they can't get through here, and then it gradiates up into larger squares. Now this is designed specifically for pigs. It's nice and durable, it's galvanized. We've reused these multiple times and very easy to get a hold of, but perfect for doing this pig pen. Next thing you're gonna have is you're gonna have a 5-foot T-post and some fence clips. You are gonna need those two things. We're gonna show you how we get all of this installed here in just a moment, but these basic fence clips, again, Tractor Supply is a great place to get them. T-posts, wherever you would buy T-posts, but it is a 5-foot T-post that you're gonna be using. Now, as far as the driver, we will be using a gas-powered driver. You're gonna see that here in just a moment. You can use a hand driver, but because we have lots of T-posts, hundreds of T-posts that we use here on the farm for fencing and things like that, we are gonna use a gas-powered T-post to drive these into the ground. Now, as far as depth, we are gonna put them just past the T. So the post itself, as you can see here, will be about 4 feet tall or so, about 3.5 to 4 feet tall. As far as overall dimensions, each one of these panels is 16 feet. We'll be making a rectangle that's 16 feet on the ends, and each one of the center sections will have 3 sets of 16 foot, or in other words, 48 feet total length across that rectangle. So that rectangle design is what we're gonna be shooting for with these panels. So we are going to be using a rain barrel waterer, so you will see that. It's very similar, in fact, the exact same setup that we used on the old farm, so you're going to see that today. You're also going to see our feeder. So the feeder that we use, we've been using it for several rounds of pigs. It's still hanging in there. We are going to be upgrading that to a larger one here on this farm because we're going to be carrying more pigs. But overall, for us and this purpose, it's going to work just fine. We're also going to be getting an enclosure delivered today. We will be using a pipe, a metal pipe enclosure. There's not a lot of shade. In fact, there's no shade around the area that we're keeping these pigs in here on the farm. So we have to create that shade for them. So you'll be seeing us putting that together as well. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. We're gonna rewind back a little bit and you're gonna be able to see us get this installed. You can kind of see how that's going to look. Now, this is a pig pen, so it's not perfect. You know, the T-posts are a little off. You can adjust those how you want to. Again, this is semi-permanent. We're going to basically take this and be able to flip it onto the other side after a couple months with the pigs being in here to get them on fresh ground. But one thing that I'll point out on this side as we walk over, you'll be able to see that this side angles end to our gate, and part of that is just a miscalculation on our part years ago when we cut this gate down, and we originally had a frame on there and now we don't, because we learned pretty quick that pigs will eat just about any type of wood. So we're gonna go ahead and just attach that gate, but we had to pick up some of that slack. And again, we didn't measure this, we just kind of went for it. Now we're still waiting for the enclosure to get delivered. That's supposed to be delivered here this afternoon, and then we need to get some paneling on there, so we're gonna show that to you. But what we need to do now as we slide in, we need to go ahead and get our gate installed. So we've got a couple different options. We've got hog rings that we're gonna try and see how they hold. If not, we'll use some galvanized tie wire. That's not an issue. One other thing I wanted to point out, you'll see that the T-posts are actually on the outside of this, and that's important because pigs are gonna push against this and try to lift this gate or lift this panel up as they get their noses underneath. Now, our hard dirt, it's really hard for them to dig. If you're in soft dirt, that would be a bigger issue. You probably would need to bury this some, but here we don't have to do that. Either way, they can push against this and they'll try, but they're pushing against the T-posts, as opposed to this being the opposite side where they're pushing against the outside of the pin, which we don't want to do. So again, you want to set it up so they're inside here and they're pushing this way up against this T-post, so you're not using a whole bunch of clips. We just used a couple to hold it in place. So we're gonna go ahead and get this door attached and get the feeder placed and hopefully the water barrel working. So you can see how we have the water set up. Now I will take a bungee or a cord, strap this to the T-post behind it just to make sure that it doesn't wobble when it starts to run down on water if we don't catch it before that. But you can see we filled it up to about here or so with water just to make sure we don't have any leaks. We're fine there. The drinker works just fine. You can see that's our first test on the water, so it's doing fine and it's sealed right back up. And you can see again how we have the pallets set up. Now, when they're small, we'll have small piglets to start out with. So when they're small, this second one will allow them to come up here, get a drink of water, and then eventually we'll add another one up here to raise it even higher as they get bigger, so they're not having to kind of get down and underneath it in order to get water. So water's set, feeder's ready to go, and fingers crossed, we'll have our enclosure here shortly. We can show you what that's gonna look like. After a little bit of work, we got this thing in place. So really heavy duty. One of the things we talked about when it comes to pigs, man, they are just terrors when it comes to tearing things up. So we wanted as much heavy duty material as we could. This will eventually be in their permanent home back on our livestock acre. For now, it's gonna be going here, and you can see it's designed so that we can move it with the tractor. So we can get in here, pull it back, slide it back where we need to, and put it back into place. And the pigs are not gonna tear this up. Not only that, this thing is very, very heavy, so they're not gonna be able to move it either. Well, at least not easily. So now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and get this covered. So we're gonna be utilizing some corrugated roofing panels. You'll see us doing that, getting cover on the top. Now we wanna make sure that the water is gonna drain back this way. We designed this so that it's 6 feet, at least it should be 6 feet, heading the other direction. So from back to front, we should have 6 feet, and the corrugated material will drain the water off this way when it does, hopefully, one of these days, rain. So we're gonna go ahead and get this thing covered and move it into place. little tough getting that thing into here, but we kind of knew that. We needed it to be nice and heavy duty for these pigs because they'll still probably just trash this thing. But we went ahead and got the rest of this installed. As Lori slides in, one thing I want to point out, on these corners where we didn't have the T-posts come together completely, we did go ahead and add some tie wire to this just to make sure that these corners are not going to come apart. Now this is not going to be obviously touched by pigs. The other side we reinforced with several of these, so it's going to hold it together so they can't actually push through these corners. Okay, so I think this is done, and I think overall we're actually done. So let's take a look at this from the front. So now you can see what this looks like when it's done. So overall, really kind of a simple thing to put together. You know, we have anywhere from 6 to 7 pigs that will be running into here. We will kind of rotate this area because it is semi-permanent with the T-posts. You can pull them up with a T-post puller. Pretty easy. Add a few panels to the back side and we can do some rotations with this. But this is also very secure, and we didn't want to have any type of electric fencing. So you don't have electrified fencing or any issues there. Overall, I think when you look at the design, maybe it's not the Taj Mahal, but in the end, you know what? We are talking about pigs. So just want to thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comment section down below. Our Amazon shop, we do have an Amazon shop with some of the things you saw us using here today. I'll leave a link down below. If you start with that link, it doesn't matter what you buy, you help to support us here. So just want to thank you for joining us today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you.